Hey guys, I thought a really fun topic for this month would be elephants. I drew one the other day in Breakfast Club that I've been doing every morning for the last month or so, and I really loved it and thought it'd be good. So I've got some pictures, they're on here, but I'll also make sure they're on the post this time so that they're like easy to draw from. And I thought I'd do something a little bit different to the seals. We'll kind of still do the like how to draw and how I'd approach it using the patron pack, but then I thought we could also just do some like a pencil one and maybe a single line one as well. So to kind of get started, I think a pencil one would be quite nice. I think this one will be quite nice to do. So I'm literally just looking at that outside shape. Their backs aren't just simply round, they've kind of got this bump in that then comes right down to this pretty straight tail. I'm going to put a nice extra bit of hair on there. And then I'm going to kind of elongates down to the head, which then we come straight down to this trunk, which curves around. I can already see this is too big, so I'm just going to alter that a little. And the trunk gets a lot fatter, you see, as it goes up, and then we've got kind of this tusk bit. The tusk comes through. It's been so nice drawing every day recently. We never quite know what we're going to do each day on this Breakfast Club, but I've drawn so many animals that I would never have really thought about sitting down and drawing. So it's been really lovely. Definitely recommend, if there's anyone who's into drawing, just kind of scheduling a FaceTime or a Zoom date, and just finding things to draw with them. It's a really nice way of being social but also doing something. So I'm not really looking at any detail in the elephant, just looking at that outside shape, trying to get the proportion right, but we'll go on to using the tombos in a minute, because I always get a much better idea of the shape when I use that and block out the shape. We've got this one coming down. Can't really see their feet, but they have those kind of like half circles there. You can't really see his back foot, so I'm just going to hint at it so he doesn't look third. And then I'm going to just put a little bit of shading in. Pencil, I think. There we go, that's better. And you can put as much or as little in as you want. I really like their kind of round, like this, the kind of wrinkles you get on the legs. I never really do anything in just pencil. It's really nice to just kind of just focus on tone. I'm just going to rub out that really big. Bit of shadow here. Thankfully, there's no howling winds in this video like there was in the last ones. We have just had a storm, ironically, but seems to have calmed down while I do this, so it's a nice change. So I'm just kind of focusing, I'm not really thinking too much, I'm just trying to get like a base down. Like this is literally just a warm-up sketch really, but like focusing on these bits that have a bit like of depth on the photo. It's also like there, just to try and give it a bit of shape and structure. A few of you have asked and mentioned about how I get character with animals. This is definitely something I'm going to do a video on at some point. It is on my list. But I thought it'd be good to get a few animals and things in the bank so that then when we do look at character, you have some like subjects to go back to and apply it to. It hasn't actually got really dark here, but I'm just giving it a bit more depth in there. Maybe a few lines for its wrinkles. And lines here on its... Yeah, it's actually got a second ear just popping up there, so I'm just going to draw that in. So if I was to do this but with tombos, I would just literally blank out that shape. We'll do it in a sec with another elephant. But yeah, I'd probably use the 992. It's quite a nice beigey brown. And yeah, blank out that shape before I even thought about adding detail. So I'd be thinking, kind of, it's got this round center, and then add in this bumpy top, and then again that roundish head that then you bring the trunk down. But we'll do it now. We'll just do it on a different picture. Maybe this guy. I quite like the birds on top. I'll have to come back to that page just so I can fit this guy on. So this one, yeah, we've just got very front on. Those ears are about this like width of his head, so it's like 3 heads width. So just think about that when you're trying to think about how big to make his middle head, like his actual head, because obviously the ears need to fit in. And watch me say that, and then I won't be able to do it now. So I'm just going to make round shape. You can, if you want, you can also do, if you have like a light grey. I've done some elephants in a light grey and then added in some brown. This does look quite brown, but I think we can add some depth to it and it'll look lovely. And then I'm just like filling in where those tusks go, so it's almost like 2 legs coming down, to then have that trunk. You can always like make the trunk a bit longer if you draw the rest and realise the trunk's too short. Again, he's got kind of lumpy head, so this is the thing with tombos, you can quite easily add in that shape. And then we've got these ears come up and then like an angle down. That kind of shape. If you feel more comfortable with not putting an outline in, just literally filling out space, you can do that too. I'm just using the side of the tombow to really get a nice thick space. So this will be the other way you could do it. You can kind of just map it as you go, which is what I've been doing a lot recently. This one's not quite as big, so I'm just gonna, as always, it always looks a bit weird to begin with. I'm just gonna add in a bit of shading already and just get a bit of shading on his trunk. And then we've got his legs coming in. which are, oh yeah, I forgot about that. I might just outline that now. Outline the tusks so that you can leave them white. I've just got a bit patch where it hasn't worked. And I'm just looking really at that kind of overall shape. We've got these and we've kind of got this second leg coming in with a bit of stomach, so I'm just going to add a bit of stomach, bit of leg, and then I don't think there's much, but I might just hint at a foot for the back one. While I let that dry, I'm going to just use, I think I'll use the N60, good like shading one, just to like get in these little birds. I think they're so cute. So I'm just going to use, just to look at the shadow, so that kind of curve of the neck for that one, another curve of the neck for that one, maybe just a little bit to kind of help me draw in the head. But I'm just going to leave it at that for now, because we'll add in more with the pen and stuff later. Back to this, the 992. Just going to second layer a few bits of shading to get that darker tone in. Again on that. Sometimes if you're struggling with seeing tone, I blur my eyes a bit so that you're getting rid of the shape really, and you're just literally looking at where's dark and where's light. If you want to add in some grass and stuff, you totally can, especially after my foliage video last month. That's going to be a little bit wet, so I might, just while that dries, might go back to this page and draw these. So you can do both. I might just do the baby, and if you want to use another colour, you can. If you have it, it's not in the patron pack, but if you have it, there is a light grey. I think it's at N75, that might be quite dark. There's also like a lighter beige. Sometimes I work with 942. There's a really light beige colour if I'm feeling a bit unsure about what I'm going to colour in, or grey, or the purple, because the purple actually does, the N60 does layer up quite nicely with the brown. But this guy's quite dark anyway, so for this one, I think I naturally want to start with the trunk. So I'm just going to try and get that curve in. Try not to make it too big. He is a baby. And keeping those proportions right. And then I'm going to come up to this head, which is kind of just like an oval, a bit like an avocado shape, like that. And you can add in a little bit of the mouth if you want to. Then I'm going to add in that kind of half butterfly ear. Again, it doesn't matter, we can add more to the shape with the pencil crayons. This is just to give you a nice guide. If you notice, the leg is kind of coming down pretty much right from his neck. So I'm just going to draw that in, and then this other stomping one. Keeping the shapes really simple. Also elephant stomachs, I haven't really done in that one, but they're often actually really diagonal. They're not always just straight across, especially with this baby. If you look, it is really quite diagonal. His back leg comes in quite quickly. And then their back, where their tail is, it kind of slumps down on on their back. Got this leg here, and then his little tail. That just needs to be a bit softer. So at the moment he looks quite kind of static, looks really straight, but we can add in more kind of shape and loosen up these lines in the next stage. I'm just going to add, again, like the other one, a bit of shading. Got a special member that sometimes joins us in our breakfast club mornings, me and my friends. It's called Ned, and he's always really good at shading, so I hope if he sees this that he'll do a better job at me than I reckon. Okay, right, this one. This should have dried a bit. I'll just quickly go back to that picture. I've sharpened my pencil especially for Harriet as well. She commented on my last video saying my pencils weren't sharp enough, so I made a special effort this time. I'm going to use a mixture, I think, of maybe three or four colours. It's going to end up being 5 colours, isn't it? I'm going to have Payne's Grey 508, maybe a little bit of the 077, but it's quite brown, so it might just be like little touches. The 093, the kind of violet grey, will be really nice for this, and it'll be really nice for the birds. And then we've got the olive brown 736, get my numbers right, and 866 burnt sienna. I might also just use the orange for the little peaks as well. If you've got a Patreon pack, these are all in it, but I'll list what I've got and what I've used in the comments in the post. So if you want to match, you can, but otherwise just use whichever colours feel most natural. So I'm going to start with the violet grey. I think it layers really nicely on these browns, and I'm just going to be focusing on kind of the different parts that I want to cover with it. Just looking at the shading of the elephant ear. And I'm going to start to give the ear that kind of lovely wobbly line. Getting some detail in. I don't really want to cover like all the brown. I'm quite liking just leaving some bits and pressing heavier with the pencil with some bits, and just lightly with the other bit. Let's swap now just to get a bit of Payne's Grey, so you can immediately see it's really nice dark grey, so we can get in some depth to this picture. So with elephant ears, again, we've got this wobble. I might just highlight a tiny few bits with the dark, and then they kind of like, just going to do some shading like that to give that wobbly depth. So you're coming in from your curves that you've created. Again, he's got a nice shadow. This is the same kind of idea if you're ever like wanting to put creases into clothes. You're just making these darker lines and then making sure your shading in between is light, and that's what gives it the kind of slightly 3D feel. And fabric as well, same for fabric. And I'm going to just draw in some of the wrinkles. It's kind of got a wrinkly head. I always like to kind of do a little squiggle on there foreheads to give them a bit of texture. I'm just going to use this Payne's Grey to go around this bird bit. Just drawing in the rest of that space. Just really focusing on how the neck kind of comes into the head, and the curve is different on the top to the bottom, and that's how you then get that bird head. And it's quite nice because they're quite little. You can keep them really simple. This guy's got quite a nice arched back like that comes down. Give them little eyes. His wings. Using the side of my pencil of my Payne's Grey just to get a bit of extra shading there. It's a lot softer, the shading. Alternatively, you can use a blunt pencil. You've kind of got these two bits like that come out of their ears there and there, so just get those in. And I'm just going to do the same as kind of what I did to this side. I'm just going to add in some blanket shading, like so, being quite loose. And then I'm going to get some of those ruffles in, those kind of elephanty ears. I think sometimes elephants can feel a bit overwhelming because they have so many wrinkles, but you don't have to add them all in, you're just giving a hint. Especially like with this trunk, obviously if you wanted you can add in loads, but this is how I would approach it. So I'm just going to get the eyes. The eyes are really on the side near these kind of the wider parts of the head. So I'm just going to do 2 dots like that. And then that's how we know that's right in between the eyes, that's where the lines start. So I'm just going to start by getting these basic slightly curved lines. They're kind of curving down very slightly, but then as the trunk gets here, they start curving the other way. So I kind of do 1 straight, 1 or 2 straight, and then I start to curve that way. And that's what gives it that shape. Again, and then I just kind of add in a few vertical lines following the curve of the trunk. We've got these lovely tusks, so I'm just going to put some shading in on each side. And then it's that curve again, so to give the shape of the tusks, you're doing that kind of upside down curve. I just add in a couple more lines. Maybe get this purple again just to blend, so we're getting some different tones. Another one that's really nice is the burnt sienna. It's quite pinky, but I actually really love, I add it to most of my animals because I just feel like it just adds that extra depth. I really love kind of putting a few different colours in my animals. In my seals, I'll add loads of colours. They're actually really beautiful colours. And the more I've drawn recently of like seals and things, the more colours I add, and actually they can like really hold it. They can get away with lots of different tones and shades. So I'm just going around that trunk to highlight it so it doesn't get lost in the legs. And I'm going to give it a little bit of shading with my Payne's grey. With the trunks, might be quite nice to use the 736, but you can just use the Payne's grey as well, but I'm just thinking something a bit lighter. That's why I don't sharpen pencils too much. They break. Like so. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll start with that lighter shade, and then on the darker side I'll just add in one line. Like that. So it's starting to come together. Just going to do the same with the legs as I did with those ears. So I'm just getting in a bit of outline, kind of curves in the legs. They are really blocky, but they do have a bit of curvature to them. Getting that belly, and then the back leg in this one is coming forward quite a lot. I'm just going to have it further back so it doesn't look too like it's going to trip over itself. Again, just mixing these colours a bit. I'm just going to get in a bit of shading just so it looks consistent. So I'm really roughly going over to give it a bit of tone. Same with the purplier colour, the pinky. And then with this Payne's grey again, what I mentioned before is on the elephant's knees they have so many wrinkles, and I just like to do like this kind of really rough, like circly shape. Circly? I get loads of words here. I'm adding in shade so that the trunk stands out a bit. We don't want it getting too lost. And just as well, like below this trunk, I'm just going to add in a bit in here, like that. And I keep mixing between using the side of the pencil for shading and then the point for some details. Really nice loose lines, quite light for the wrinkles. Not thinking too much about where I'm putting them. Getting in some texture there. And then the feet you can't really see, but again, like with the other one, I'm just going to, they are kind of curved, their feet. And then we've got these like half circles. I'm putting some shading in just to try and make it so they're not straight down. They do have a very slight like foot that comes out. And then I'm just going to use my N60 again. You can add in some really nice grass if you wanted. Just give a bit of shading. So it's like got a shadow. Love adding shadows to illustrations. And I might add just a little bit of it on these trunks. You're just thinking about if the light's coming from this like kind of up high, but the trunk's hiding a bit of this side, which is why we've got shading on there and on there, and then the same side as birds, and that's what will give it that kind of understanding of shadow. And that's why then I've got it coming out this way, because that's the way that the shadow would be cast if the sun was coming from up here. I think he's done. I quite like him, but we'll go back to this one. And I'm just going to do the same kind of thing, but I'm going to go straight in with the Payne's grey. I'm going to keep this one a bit simpler, just to show you. So I'm just really looking at the tone. Again, their kind of back is almost straight down really, that back leg. And we've already guided ourselves for where things are going because of that base colour. If you want to try and give your animals more character, a really good way of doing it is thinking about their proportions and changing it slightly. So it might be that you give them slightly longer legs or shorter legs. They might have a longer trunk or bigger ears, and that's always an immediate way to start making, like, giving something extra character. It's always nice if something has a long nose to make it longer, or really long skinny legs to make them even skinnier. So this one, their ears, it kind of comes straight up and then almost straight down again like a mountain, but then it gets the shape, so it kind of comes down, round like here, and then it links back up into the ear. I've just done a couple of wavy bits there, but it does actually just go down, and then the same on the other side. You can see a little bit of it like that. And I'm going to do what I did on the other elephant. I'm just adding in those shading lines so that it's not just like one flat shape. Making that shadow a bit heavier, and a bit heavier on here as well. I'm not actually using the monotwin pen at all, but if you feel like you want to give it an extra outline, you absolutely can. I'm just really enjoying getting the texture and lines with pencil crayons for these elephants. If you're really interested in line work, I did just do a Patreon video on dip pen and ink, which is what I use a lot for my line work. That's in the advanced tier section, which is £9 a month. But if you really kind of think, oh, I'd love to see this video, but I don't want to upgrade all the time, you can upgrade and have a look, and you can always downgrade next month. There's absolutely no pressure. So I'm being quite careful. I'm just thinking about this shape. It's got this cute little mouth, but you don't want it to look suddenly really creepy. So giving him a rounder jaw, which will soften his face a bit. I'm going to be really light with shading on his face because I don't want the eye to go invisible when I add that. So I'm just adding in a bit here, looking at where the shading is really important. And then I'm just going to add in that little eye. If you want to play around as well with where the eye looks best, you can always do some really quick sketches next to it or on another page, or a just piece of paper, and just really quickly get that shape down and work out where the eye fits best for its character, because it would actually also look really nice a bit further forward. And that's always a good way of testing it out. And I know it's the amount of times I leave the face till last and then I mess up the entire drawing because I put the eyes in the wrong place, or I draw the mouth really weirdly. what I might do for this one, just for fun, is I'm going to get him as if he's walking through some mud. So I'm just going to use that same colour that we used for him and maybe do some dots for walked through it. And then the 736 is quite a nice combination with it, just to give it a bit of texture. There is a little bit of grass by his foot, so if you wanted to add that in. Maybe a bit over here just to give context. And then I often quite like to put a bit of whatever I put on the ground, like the colouring, into the body, just even if it's just a little bit, and I find it links it up really nicely. And I'd like to do one more, I think, because I'm loving drawing these guys. So for our final picture, I wanted to do a bit of this group of elephants. In true Blue Peter style, I've just done 2 to kind of get started so that this video doesn't go on and on into your day or evening. But I've literally just built it up the exact same way we've done the other ones. I started with the trunk, I added in these teardrop heads, the ears, and looked at that shape of the back. In group animal pictures, it's always best to start with the foreground picture. So you're looking at what's closest to you, and that's what you're drawing first. If you're drawing something like this big elephant at the back, you've then got to leave space for these, and it can easily come off the page, or you don't leave the right space for them. So yeah, start with whichever one you are drawing in the foreground first. So that's what I did with this one. I've then added in this second one behind, including the feet, and then you can obviously do as much of this picture or as little as you want. I'm just going to do that last big elephant, and because his ear is so prominent, that's what I'm going to start with. So it's kind of, I know it's roughly in line with this head, so I'm just looking at that ear shape. In true patron video fashion, of course, a storm has now just come in, so you might hear the occasional batter of rain on the window, but hopefully it won't be too loud this time, unlike the wind in the last one. This will go over to the other side of the page, but I actually really like that anyway. I enjoy using both sides. And then the head for this one is just above that ear. Kind of this lump. If you wanted, literally just break it down into shapes. We've got that shape, which is the top part of its head, and we've got its mouth, which is coming out here and down. Just try and blend those together a little. And then we've got this amazing trunk, which kind of comes up into the air, round, and is going into its mouth. I'm just going to lightly put in that tusk again, just so I don't colour where it should be. I've got that mouth a bit more, just trying to not get the crease, not to interrupt it too much. So with group pictures, I'm kind of going to roughly do these the same, but it's a really nice time to try different techniques. So I'm just getting that back in with the same animals. So it might be that you just want to do this foreground one in Tombows. You might want to do one in pencil. You might want to try oil pastels. You can kind of then really clearly compare how they are, rather than just drawing the same thing 3 times with the same medium. I've so enjoyed trying different mediums each day with Breakfast Club that I've mentioned, which is just some friends. It's a really nice space to just relax, try something different, not be too precious about what I'm creating, because it's not for anything, it's not a commission, it's not for anything in particular. And I've actually loved some of the work that's come out of it. Okay, so we've got him there. I'm trying to see his legs because we've obviously got those other two. I'm assuming it's just kind of coming down in front. I'm actually going to leave a little bit of gap there so I can clearly see. So yeah, there are those three. If I was to do the next ones, what I'd do is I'd probably add in I'd add in that baby there, and then that second baby, and then finally that one at the back that's coming right out there, which is lovely. These ones will be dry now. You can either, like this picture is great because it's black and white. It really focuses on the tone of the elephants. If you want to make it colour, you absolutely can. But if you want to just kind of focus on making it black and white and have that as a challenge and a different thing to try, then you can try that too. Obviously it doesn't have to be black and white, it can be any colour, but just in that tone. So I'm just using this grey violet again, just to get a bit of texture. So I'll just do that now quickly. Just so you know, if you start doing like pencil crayon but you want to add in more Tombow, you can still do that over the top. It still adds that really nice tone. Just remember it is then a bit wet if you immediately want to go back on with your pencils. I'm going to go in with the Payne's Grey again. I'm going to put in their eyes first, they all have a bit of character. And then we're just doing as we did before. I'm going to get in those lovely lines of the trunk. This time I'm kind of going to do some loops, try something different. With the tusk it kind of goes over and up like that. I'm just giving it a bit of a jaw. Makes it friendlier as well, I think. And they've got that kind of flat head, which then goes into that curvy body. Also, you'll find if you use kind of two of the Caran d'Ache pencils, and press them one over the other, they do blend really nicely as well, so you can create a much softer tone. And I'm just going to do some like looser lines again to get that kind of wrinkle effect. A bit on the forehead. And then I'm putting a bit of shading around the tusk, but making sure not to put too much on the face to hide the eye. Add in a bit of that classic burnt sienna. And then move on to the next one. You really do start to get a feel for it that you can just apply to each of them if you are drawing them all with the same materials. You should feel yourself speeding up as you're going along. Okay, and now this last back one, just to finish off. It's a little sharpen. So he's got really lovely lines over his trunk. I'm just going to get this ear in, getting a feel for that kind of jaggedy edge. It's actually straight over there and then it comes down. And there's not too much kind of lines and things in this one. Not too many crinkles, but I might just give a little hint of a couple. I know I haven't used my mono twin in this session at all, but if you want to do their outlines in mono twin, you absolutely can. I'm just enjoying having this limited materials for these elephants, but the lines would work really nicely as well for that kind of loose outline feel. So we've kind of got these curving, just looking at the way it's curving and how it then slowly again comes the other way. Really shouldn't have put it quite so much over the crease. It's making adding some shading right on her mouth quite difficult, but hopefully you can still get the idea. Never really noticed before how many kind of lumps and bumps elephants have in their head. It's amazing. Just liking these kind of inner, like on the inside they get all those lines as well. Putting some shading in. Of course you can layer up your tombow if you want to. I want to make him, he looks quite happy. So like bringing in that little smile. And just adding these loose lines for the wrinkles. Trying to lightly do that background foot, but I don't want it to disturb this foreground too much, so I'm not putting too much shading in there. It looks like that's his feet. That's hilarious. Doing some final touches of shadows. If you wanted to add some water in, you absolutely can. I might actually just, I don't know how to do it in brown or, yeah, even though we're meant to be doing monotone, I think I'm gonna rebel and just do it in this beige, just so there's a little something different. I think maybe just add a little raw burnt sienna to this guy and a bit of Payne's grey on that tail actually. I think we're done. I just wanted to like take the time to thank you guys for like not only bearing with me with this video, but also like subscribing, spending money on this Patreon. You are literally funding me being able to be an illustrator, and I'm so happy that I can kind of give something back and hopefully bring some joy and help you learn how to draw as well. But yeah, it really does mean a lot that you're here, so thank you so much. And whether you're just part of this tier or whether you're on all the tiers, like I really do value you as